Blowing the lid on overseas surgery. The things you need to know before looking abroad. What you're about to hear is both shocking and graphic in nature.
I was just one of those women that didn't do enough research. I wanted plastic surgery really, really badly. And I rushed into the decisions that I made.
So what surgery were you after?
I wanted a breast augmentation with a lift. I'd lost a lot of weight and I wasn't happy at all with the way that I was looking. I had no confidence. I'd lost a lot of breast tissue. However, it seemed like a really straightforward procedure, from what I had read and the small amount of research that I had done. I didn't imagine any issues whatsoever.
So when did you have your surgery?
I had my first surgery about 6 years ago.
Your first surgery?
Yeah, my first surgery. I've had 4 breast augmentations after my first surgery to correct the complications that I got from the first surgery.
How many have you had?
That's 5 breast augmentations in total now.
So you've had 5 breast augmentation surgeries in total?
Yes, that's right.
That's unbelievable. What went wrong?
Absolutely everything went wrong. I had my first breast augmentation and the implants were done over the muscle. I had the lift. From that point to within 6 months, I had a complication called capsular contracture, where my breasts became extremely disfigured and misshapen. I had to get that repaired. After that, my implants, being that they were placed over the muscle, never actually connected to my chest wall. So whenever I leaned forward, they would fall forward and never actually sit against my chest. They spun around in place. They flipped over. I had another augmentation to replace the implants. It still didn't fix the complications. They continued to flip over, and sometimes I'd be stuck like that for days or weeks at a time, and it was the most humiliating experience of my life. I couldn't wear anything low cut. When an implant flips over, it means that you've got the flat surface of the implant facing forward, which gives your breast almost a square look. And there's no way of hiding it. There's no underwear that you can wear that doesn't make it look completely misshapen. There was no other way for me to fix it other than to try to flip it back over manually, which was excruciating. This happened very, very regularly. I had teardrop-shaped implants, which meant that sometimes they'd spin around in place so that the fuller section of the implant sat at the top. I went back for another operation and another lift to try to tighten the skin so that they would sit closer against my chest and stop flipping. That still didn't work, and I also had capsular contracture again. So pretty much for the entire 6 years, I had nothing but misery and complications. They were exceptionally fake looking, and I was just absolutely devastatingly unhappy with the results. It was a miserable time of my life.
So it's really just another horror story?
A horror story, absolutely, yes.
So how much have all these surgeries cost you?
I've been thinking about it, and I would have had to have spent well over $40,000 to just keep correcting these surgeries.
That's incredible. We've all heard stories like this about having surgery overseas, the botched jobs, the complications, the costs to fix it. Where did you have your surgery?
I had my surgery here in Australia.
So your botched surgery happened here in Australia?
Absolutely, yes.
So what happened?
It was just basically where I realised I'd made such a massive mistake. I hadn't done the research that I needed to do to find out what the best options for me actually were. I went to the first surgeon that I consulted with. He was a cosmetic surgeon. I never did any research to discover what the difference between a cosmetic surgeon and a plastic surgeon actually was. I didn't do any research to think about the options outside of what he recommended for me, being that he wanted me to go over the muscle as opposed to under the muscle. I trusted what he said, and the subsequent 3 operations from that point on were with him as well, and not once was I able to rectify any of the complications that I'd actually had.
So what were your options?
I realised pretty much at that point that a plastic surgeon was my only option to fix these issues. And in Australia, I literally just could not afford it. Plastic surgeons in Australia are more expensive than cosmetic surgeons because, and quite rightly so, they have 7 years of medical training specifically in plastics on top of their medical degree, whereas a cosmetic surgeon doesn't have those qualifications. However, like I said, I just couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford that option to fix the problems that I was having.
Then what happened?
I started looking into international surgery. I was very, very dubious at first because of the horror stories that come back from international surgery. So obviously when you start researching international surgery, the first thing that popped out at me was Thailand, but that didn't appeal to me at all because I went for a couple of consults with Thai companies. I never got to meet or discuss anything with my surgeon. Basically, all that happened was a few photos were taken of me, sent away by email, and I got a short paragraph in response with the suggestions of what that surgeon wanted to do. I couldn't ask any follow-up questions, and having already been to Thailand as well, I know that the English over there is so poor, and that the actual state of the country is, a very holiday type destination, but it is also very dirty, and I just didn't feel confident whatsoever that I was going to get any better results than what I got here in Australia, that was for sure.
So you were never offered a chance to speak directly with your surgeon?
No, I never got to speak to my surgeon. And that was really concerning for me because being that I'd been through what I'd been through, I had a lot of questions I needed to ask. I wanted to know exactly how they were going to fix my situation and whether the results were going to be worth my time, because at the end of the day, Thai surgery was so dirt cheap that I was concerned that I was going to get dirt cheap results.
So Thailand was pretty much out for you?
It was out. Having been there and just my experience with the companies that I consulted with and just with my experience here in Australia, I wasn't willing to risk it.
So what did you do?
Well, I nearly gave up, to be perfectly honest, and just thought, I'm stuck like this. I certainly wasn't going back to my surgeon in Australia to try to fix it again. I couldn't afford a plastic surgeon in Australia, and Thailand scared me more than, even my Australian experience. So I let it go for a little while, but then I started doing a little bit more research, and I came across a company, Ultimate Beauty Escapes, that used a different country, the Philippines, specifically Manila in the Philippines. And that intrigued me because I thought, okay, what is it that's different about this company as opposed to all of these other stock standard Thai companies? And the information that I got immediately just blew my mind and made me realise that I'd found an option that might very well be viable. They weren't quite as cheap as the Thai companies, but they were certainly a lot cheaper than Australia, which was something that was important to me because I didn't have the money to fund further surgery in Australia. They also, being that they were going through the Philippines, my research into that country was that they follow American medical guidelines, which put my mind at ease straight away. The FDA approval process and everything like that was something that I felt more comfortable with than, say, another country like Thailand. The fact that they speak English in the Philippines made it a lot more reassuring to me to be able to communicate with my surgeon. And then the clincher that really got me in was the fact that when I first consulted with Ultimate Beauty Escapes, I also got to consult via Skype with their plastic surgeon, and I could ask all the questions that I wanted. He could tell me exactly what had gone wrong in my surgeries previously, what he was going to do to fix them, and most importantly, he was a plastic surgeon, not just a cosmetic surgeon.
So why the Philippines?
Well, like I said, the fact that, they're an English-speaking country, that was one of the biggest things that appealed to me. I want to be able to speak to my surgeon and understand exactly what he's telling me. When I consulted with Dr. Unsen, his English was perfect. His accent was perfect. And that bred a lot of confidence in me that he knew exactly what he was talking about and knew what I wanted more than anything. Another reason that it drew me in was the fact that Ultimate Beauty Escapes, operating out of the Philippines, did things very, very differently to any other company. They own and operate their own recovery centre, which means that I would only be in a centre with other patients, not just dumped at a hotel and been forced to find my own way around a country that I wasn't familiar with. They have their own personal chaperones and basically you're looked after 24/7. So everything about the Philippines was ticking the boxes that I needed ticked.
So you got to speak to your actual surgeon. How much did it cost you?
It didn't cost me anything. The consultation was free, and I didn't just speak to the surgeon once. I consulted with him over and over and over again. Now, at that point in time, I had lost even more weight, and as I built my relationship up with the plastic surgeon via Skype, I realised how much faith that I actually had in him, and I began consulting with him about some other procedures that I was interested in. At this point, I had lost about 70 to 75 kilos in weight, and I had a lot of excess skin. So I started talking to him about getting a tummy tuck and an arm lift and a back lift and a thigh lift. And with the discussions that we had, I realised I had nothing but the utmost faith in him to do a brilliant job. And instead of just going over there for my breast augmentation, I went in for all 5 procedures.
So when did you go to the Philippines?
I left Australia it was the end of February this year, 2013, and I spent about 5 weeks there with Dr. Unsen.
So what did you think? How did it go?
It completely surpassed all of my expectations. The second time round, obviously, when I was finding a new surgeon, I spent a lot of time researching. Not just researching the procedures, but also researching results that other people had had. A lot of before and after photos on Google and different ways that these procedures could actually be performed. And once I actually arrived there, I realised straight away that I was going to be delighted. I was picked up by a chaperone the moment I arrived and driven around personally the entire time that I was there. I was never alone. So my surgeries were broken up into a couple of different stages, and I was there for a total of 5 weeks. Now, having a personal chaperone the entire time that I'm there was something that I realised is very, very important when it comes to surgery, because when I'm out in another country that I'm not familiar with, for example, I went and saw a movie and I started feeling a little bit unwell halfway through that movie. My chaperone picked me up, took me straight to the car, took me home, and until I was feeling better. Another thing was that the plastic surgeon visited the recovery resort every single day to check on all of the patients. That was the kind of service I didn't even expect. He made sure that every step of the way that I was recovering, that there were no signs of infection, that every part of my result was making me happy, and that I was comfortable and that I wasn't in pain. He was contactable the entire time I was there. I could instant message him at any given time of the day or night and he would respond. The people back in Australia within Ultimate Beauty Escapes who were running it, contactable the entire time. I literally stayed in constant contact with everybody, as well as the people that were in the recovery centre actually looking after me. I was looked after hand and foot from the moment I got there, and it was, I'd have to say, a far better experience than anything I could have even hoped for anywhere else. The fact that you're taken out of your home environment during these surgeries, and this is something I've learned from experience, and put into a place where you are really forced to recover, it takes you out of your daily routine, which is what puts you at risk when you're trying to recover from surgery as well. When you go straight home from a breast augmentation in Australia, there's no way that you can just break that routine. You're still cooking your dinner. You're driving sooner than you should because you feel fine. I think being taken out of that environment and placed in a very safe haven where all they focus on is your recovery and making sure that it's perfect meant that it was the best decision I could possibly have made. And at the end of the day, the results that I got from that surgery are better than anything that I've seen on any Google before and after image or from any other surgeon.
So what would you say to women considering having cosmetic surgery overseas?
Look, I would say be very careful, obviously. Do your research. Once I came back from Manila, I realised that with the experience that I'd had, I had to work for this company. I had to be a part of UBE because the way that it changed my life and the way that it corrected the mistakes that I'd made in my past was something that I wanted to pass on to other women. I want to be able to help them to not stroll down the same path of mistakes that I've made. So women who are considering international surgery, do your research, because if you get it right and you make the right decisions, which is what I did, you're going to end up with a better result than you would have anywhere else, and you're also going to be very safe and very happy, and you're going to recommend it to everybody around you because you'll realise that it's actually a better experience than anything you could have even had in Australia.